guys, it's Emily, and today I'm here to bring you another recent reads video. At the time I'm filming this, it's the last week of October, so I just finished 2 books in one day, and they were my last books for October, so I figured I'd go ahead and get this video filmed. The first book that I finished recently was Macbeth by William Shakespeare, and this was a buddy read with Heidi from My Reading Life, and we did a combination of reading the text and then listening to the book on audio, and I listened to it on this audio CD version, and it was a pretty good listen. There was fancy, spooky music during the scenes with the witches and in between the scenes, in between the acts, so it was a really good read. And Heidi and I had a really great time talking about different stuff in here. We talked about predestination and the concept of honor and the concept of the fact Heidi mentioned that it sort of seems like this is rushed, like that there's scenes missing out of this, and she's read in her edition that they might have edited it for a king that didn't like plays, which I had never heard of. So that was really interesting, and I had a great time discussing this with Heidi. This was a reread for me. I read this in high school in my 9th grade English class, but that was like almost 15 years ago, so I was definitely due for a reread. And this was a really good book to read in October. Very spooky with the witches and the prophecies and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. If you don't know the story of this, this is about a Scottish noble named Macbeth, and he is told a prophecy by 3 witches that he will become king of Scotland. And so then he wants to ensure that this prophecy happens, so he starts doing very evil things to secure his position, and then we see how this prophecy starts to weigh on him and on his wife, Lady Macbeth, who was equally a part of his nefarious dealings to become king. So yeah, really great play. Definitely recommend it if you haven't ever read it. And thanks to Heidi for being such a great buddy read partner too. And then this morning, I finished 2 different books. I finished The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Other Stories by Robert Louis Stevenson. Oh, you can't see it very well. And this was my read for October. This was actually like my first year to actually read anything for October specifically, so that was really cool. When I first picked this up, I thought this was going to be only The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll. I didn't realize it had all this other stuff in it. Why is it not? And so anyway, you can see the title. It's got this weird picture on it. Anyway, but it also had these other stories in it too, most of which were kind of spooky and creepy. There was one where the devil was living in a guy's house. There was another where a guy has killed a person and then somebody, either a devil or an angel, comes to visit him. There's 3 stories about the Prince of Florence and the Suicide Club and his adventures, and then let's see what else. There's a bunch of different stories. Oh, and then I was also going to mention one of these stories was The Body Snatcher, which is about a guy who is working at a hospital and they need bodies for dissection, and so he is working with this other person to get bodies. Well, anyway, Kate Howe recorded The Body Snatcher as one of her October short story series, and so I actually listened to listen to The Body Snatcher instead of reading it. So thanks to Kate Howe, if she's watching. That was a really great video, and I'll link that down there in case you're interested in checking it out. And then I also listened to another one on audio, the one about the devil living in the guy's house. It's called Thraw and Janet, and it's actually written in the Scots dialect, so I actually read the modern English version first, and then I went back and listened to the Scots version on audio, and that was very interesting as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I'm glad I finally read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde to know what the fuss is about. Although frankly, I wasn't that impressed, because I feel like if you know the twist already, which most people do, then you know the most important part of the story. But that's just my opinion. Overall, really great collection of stories, and I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for a spooky October read next year. And then finally, my last book for October was my Willa Cather for the month, and this is Shadows on the Rock. this was a reread for me. I had previously read this in February of 2017, and reading this book is actually what made me decide I wanted to do my Willa Cather read-through, because I really enjoyed this book when I first read it, and it was a 5-star read for me, and I'm very pleased to say that it still is a 5-star read for me. I really love this book. This book is about a young girl named Cecile and her father, Euclid, and they live in Quebec in the 1600s, when Quebec is known as the New France, and it is a French colony, and Euclid is the apothecary in Quebec, and so it's about their life in Quebec, and it shows a year of their life, because in the fall, the ships that have come from France leave and go back to France for the winter, and then they have 8 months where they have no contact with the outside world, so they don't know anything that's going on in France. And so it's about Cecile and her friendships with some of the local boys in town. It's about the power of religion in Quebec. We follow some of the priests, and we hear a story about a very special nun that it doesn't live in Quebec but has a big impact in Quebec, and we hear a lot of history about the first settlers of Canada and the martyrs that were killed by the Indians. And it's a really fascinating book. I really enjoy it. This time I actually bought the Kindle version and was able to translate the French. I think last time I sort of just skipped it all if I didn't, assuming I could figure out, based on context clues what they were saying. But this time I was very diligent, and I went through and looked up every French phrase and every reference to a person I didn't know. And I actually did look at the map, because there was a lot of references to places in France, and I looked on Google Maps and looked at these different places and some of the different places in Canada as well. And of course it's so funny because they're talking about like this place out in the middle of nowhere in the woods, and then you look at it on the Google Maps now, and now it's considered a suburb of Quebec, and it's like, a place where people take the train into work every day. So it's just a really fascinating book, and really fascinating to see how Quebec and Canada have changed from then till now. And I would really recommend it if you're interested in just a quiet story about the daily life of two settlers in New France, Canada. Really wonderful story. Probably my favorite Willa Cather of the ones I've read. Lucy Gayheart and Saphria and the Slave Girl better do a lot of stuff if they want to compete with this book when I read them. Those are the last two Willa Cathers I have to read. But yeah, so I'm finished with my October reading, and by the time you see this, Nonfiction November will have already started, because I'm going to post it on the next Thursday. I got my Nonfiction November TBR coming out this Thursday. But yeah, I'm really excited about my nonfiction books, and I'm sure when you see this, I'll be deep into the first one, and maybe I've even finished one of them so far. But yeah, I hope everybody's having a great day, and you're reading some great books, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!